What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. I'm your host, your bastard of ceremonies, Reckless Rexx Ruger. That, of course, is the Freddie Mercury puppet. We're back with another banger here on Pod Scum, the only place where the cool kids come to chop it up with your boy, Rexx Ruger, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr., and you know it to be true. And looking at myself, I know it to be true. And that's, of course, made possible by... right there, kids. You might not get to look as good as me, but you can certainly try. That's right, folks. I am Diamond Dave Lee Roth Jr., a.k.a. the son of glam, a.k.a. the front man for the band, Mr. Wop Boppa Loo Boppa Wop Bam Bam Shazam, hot damn, the peanut butter to your jam, adored by millions of fans. That is me, son of a legend. And we're back with another great episode. Make sure to like and follow us and check us out on Facebook, and also if you're watching this right now, to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on this very channel for the best, and maybe I'm a little biased, the best conversations anywhere on the planet, and maybe even on other planets. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that right now. And today, no different. We got another great one. Before we get into it, just want to, again, I like to do this every couple of episodes. Big shout out and thank you to my guests who come on here and make doing this podcast possible. As I've said before, I don't just pick your name out of a hat. You're on my radar for a reason. I respect and admire your talents. Love what you do. You've come across, or I've come across you for whatever reason. But certainly, God damn it, Freddie Mercury. For whatever reason, you've come into my life. Your talents have come into my life. I love what you do, and therefore I seek you out to have you on here to chop it up with you and to have these amazing conversations that Pod Scum is so known for. And I anticipate that this one will also be just like every other one, another conversation with an absolute fucking legend. And so you get twice the legend because, of course, you get me. Goes without saying. It's a twofer, as I like to say. And today's episode going to be a fun one, man. This is a guy whose band I really, really like. For all you fans out there who like your psychedelic, blues, stoner, doom, sludge, whatever you want to call it, man. If you like your music fucking thick and heavy, which is how I like my music and my women. Like a little thickness there. You were going to love what my guest band does. Whoa Fat are a great band. And, you know, he's here now, so I'll let him tell you how fucking great he is. How's that sound? Better than me saying it. That's for sure. Hello, Kent.
Hey, how you doing? Trying to get my...
I'm good, sir. How are you? Much better now that you're here, man. I appreciate you doing this, man. Thank you so much, man. I'm glad we got a chance to. I'm actually glad we got a chance to get this done and have our itineraries match up and you know, our schedules link up so we can actually get this done. That I find is the hardest part about doing a podcast. Sometimes is just linking up with people. Everyone's got such a busy life nowadays.
Yeah, sorry it took a while for us to get this.
Listen, man, no worries at all, man. Whoa Fat is such a great fucking band, and one thing that I love that you guys fucking do still is I thought for a while that long gone were the days of, like, you know, when we used to get Metallica albums that were 60, 70 minutes. You guys are still fucking, you guys will still do that.
Yeah, well, you know, sorry. You know, it's funny because, like, the very first album, Gathering Dark, you know, way back in 2006, I guess that was when we did that record. It was a thing of, like, you know, I had all these songs, and my thought at the time was, I just want to fit as much on this album as possible because I may not get another chance to do it, and so that's what we did. But then it just kind of became a thing of, like, you know, coming up with lots of riffs, and this I have a hard time writing short songs. I try and write like a 5-minute song, and it just never works out. You know, I mean, I feel like, you know, I'm thinking, oh yes, it's nice and compact. This is a good short song, and it's like 7 minutes. But you know, as over time, it just kind of seemed like, hey, why be constrained by time? Yeah.
Why fight it? Like this last album, The Singularity, coming in at 76 minutes long. I love that.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was actually that long, but yeah. But, you know,
well,
hey.
Well, because I think maybe people got scared off by doing that because of the combination of obviously there's so much music coming out on the streaming platforms every day, and it seems like the general public's attention span is dwindled down to practically nothing.
Yeah, I mean, but like for me, I've never really, I'm not thinking about, I'm obviously not thinking about airplay or anything like that.
Right, right.
I'm just thinking about the song, and I come to it with kind of a jazz mentality because I was a jazz musician to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the idea of just being able to open up and just go with things and see how they turn out has always been kind of my mindset with stuff.
Yeah.
And so I never really worry too much about whether it's going to be too long for people, because we're doing it for us, we're doing it for the music and what I think works well with the music.
Yeah.
And, so there's definitely people there that like the long songs, and I know I'm a person that, like, when I see an album that everything's like 3 minutes long, I'm like, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
There's long songs in there,
Yeah.
But
give me some meat. Yeah. And so if I could go backwards and chop it up with you, go back a little bit. Was there a specific album or a song or an artist that really kind of lit the fire for you to do music?
Well, that's a hard question because I grew up, both my parents are classical musicians,
mm-hmm.
and I grew up in a musical household. I was just surrounded by music. And so my journey to like the heavier world is sort of a weird one, because I grew up listening to classical music. My dad listened to a lot of big band jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sort of got me listening to a little bit of that when I was really young, like elementary school,
right,
junior high. And then I started taking music lessons, and that's when I started getting into jazz. And I went to University of North Texas as a jazz major. But as happens to many of us when we go to college, we meet a ton of different people that are totally from different places than you originally are. And so that's where I really got exposed to more heavier stuff. This was in the 80s. I discovered 80s hardcore and started listening to Slayer and Metallica and heavier stuff at that time, and that kind of led me down the road of the heavy world. But it was like the late 90s when I first heard Fu Manchu that really kind of, because I've always had this affinity for blues based music, and that's always spoken to me, and just the blues in general has always just been kind of been drawn to that. And hearing Fu Manchu, it sort of said, yeah, you can do heavy music that's also very blues based and influenced.
Absolutely.
And that kind of that started me on the whole stoner rock kind of thing, and opened my eyes to wow, there's a bunch of bands doing this kind of thing.
And what were your parents' opinions, because they are classically trained musicians? When you start getting into this kind of music, do they kind of fucking poo-poo those styles of music because they are classically trained musicians? Do they consider that not real music?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, they kind of dismiss it as it's not really great, especially because my brother's like a classical musician as well, and he played in the Air Force band, and so yeah. No, I'm like the black sheep.
Yeah. And so when you guys get together to do an album, and you get together with the guys, what's typically the creative process like? Is it democratic, collaborative, or does somebody bring in the lion's share of the ideas?
Generally, I write most of the stuff in terms of the riffs and kind of the song structure, and then we'll rehearse it and play through it, and we record all of our rehearsals, and so that's a great way to kind of hear what works and what's not working. Yeah. And we'll kind of hash things out as we're working on it. And with bass, Zach, who was playing bass on the last record, is great at bringing his own voice to what's going on with the bass parts, and he and Michael work really well together in terms of locking down a groove. And so most of the time it's kind of that process. There's Michael's written some songs for certain albums too, where it'll be kind of the same process where he'll bring in kind of the somewhat completed song structure and riff ideas that will work out in rehearsal. For the song on the Singularity called The Oracle, that was actually a jam that we did. Yeah. And we that specific recording is not the original jam, but we did a jam one time in rehearsal that just kind of just an organic thing where we were jamming, and we had recorded it, and it was like, wow, that's really cool. And so we kind of used the ideas of what we did in that jam to form the basis for that song. And it still is, like, when we recorded that, it was a jam that sort of had these like signposts of like, all right, we're going to do this part and then we'll move on to this part.
Right.
And so kind of like just organically unfolded, which is something that I love. That's actually my favorite song in the record.
And when you're going to listen to music from a fan standpoint, are you, I know I was this way for a while. Doing the podcast has certainly helped me kind of broaden my horizons, for lack of a better term. But if I'm puttering around the house or listening to music, it was hard for me for a while to venture out and try to find new music or something that was kind of exciting or kind of fresh to me. Well, when you're going to listen from a fan standpoint, do you tend to fall back on stuff that's familiar, or are you able to find new stuff out there that excites you?
It's kind of both, I guess. Lately, I've just kind of, for whatever reason, I've kind of fallen back on a lot of stuff that sort of is working for me, kind of vibe wise or emotionally. But
yeah.
For a long time, it was discovering, reading lots of reviews of bands and then listening to those reviews, and like on the Obelisk or on wherever, just finding reviews. Like the Doom charts has always been a great place to find new bands for me that I'd like.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I use Amazon streaming for streaming music.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll just put it on, like, this My Station that's basically based on your likes, and I'm discovering cool bands that way that I hadn't heard of. So, but I'm maybe not, sadly, searching out as much stuff as I once was, but I don't know. It kind of depends on my mood, I guess.
And like, I see you're sitting in a studio setting now. Outside of writing the music, do you do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff? I'm not a musician myself at all, but like, the engineering, the producing, that kind of stuff, is that all handled by you guys as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's what my day job is I'm a recording engineer, and this is my studio, and so
okay,
that's what I do. So yeah, I do all the engineering and mixing and mastering for Wolfat too, and which is also why it's easy for us to record everything, because we'll rehearse here at the studio and put mics, and we'll record all the rehearsals. But yeah, it's in a lot of ways, I feel like I want somebody else to kind of handle that while we're recording, because it's hard to have to wear both hats of like performing and producing, and then like worrying about the technical side. But at the same time, I end up being sort of control freak about our music, and it would be hard for me to let somebody else do that too. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, that's what I do. So yeah, I handle.
Interesting. So coming from the background, and with parents that were classically trained musicians, and you having a jazz background, does it drive you crazy when you see bands nowadays? And again, I'm not a musician, but these are just terms that I see out there. You're seeing a lot of these bands, that have longevity in the industry, legendary status, so to speak. And they're kind of using these, backing tracks, these smoke and mirror type tricks or whatever, man. Not necessarily maybe giving us the authentic, product, not really up there. Do you think those bands ought to get a free pass if they've been doing it a long time? Or like, if you're a fan, would you rather plop down your money and go see the band, knowing that they're doing it authentically, even if it isn't really the best show?
Yeah, to me, I'd rather see a band just go out there and play. I mean, I guess there are some times where maybe you need those extra tracks, but in general, I feel like I'd rather just see. I think a lot of times that bands that end up doing that, especially like big major label bands, so that everything sounds exactly like the record.
Yeah.
To me, I'd rather it not sound exactly like the record. That's what's awesome about a live Jimi Hendrix record is it's not like the record. It's
right.
why you go see them live. I want to see what they do live, and so ultimately, that's what I prefer. Is like, I'd rather, even if you're missing maybe some parts here and there that you hear on the record because they don't have enough guys to cover everything because they overdub stuff. I'd still rather just hear them playing, as a band, and it's kind of like the whole thing of like, you watch Saturday Night Live or something. It's like, it's more about like choreography and dance than it's like getting up there and playing. It's like, I don't care about any of that. I just want to see 4 guys or whatever, 3 guys go up there and just like
Yeah.
kick ass and rock out.
You make a good point about the Hendrix live album too. Like you used to actually hear a lot of live albums, man, like where they would leave the fuck ups in there and just say, "Hey, this is part of the show," you know?
Yeah, that's what it's about.
You know, we hit a clunker, man, but we're gonna leave it in there, man. You know, like we're human. You know?
Yeah. You hear Jimmy's strings go out of tune, but he keeps playing a solo.
Right. So, when you guys approach going out on the road and touring, you know, I mean, because you have a recording studio. And, you know, I know nowadays, unless you're way up at the top of the food chain, man, and you're some huge pop star like Taylor Swift, it's hard to get really, really rich nowadays, you know, in today's music industry. Are you guys able to go out and tour and like afford to go out and tour? And is there a set timeline or an itinerary of how long you guys can go out for without like kind of, you know, stretching yourself beyond your means?
Yeah, well, like we've never been a band that's done a ton of touring. We've done more like international touring and like especially Europe. And reason for that is it's there's an upfront cost for sure, but it's generally we're going to do better in Europe than we are here in America, which is sad to say, but it's, you know, there's more of a touring infrastructure and mindset in Europe with the venues and with availability of backline and just the, you know, like you can play all these different places, you know, in Germany on like a Tuesday night or something, and you're going to get a crowd. Whereas in the US, it's a little harder to do that unless you're at a certain level. And also in general, that I think that the venues treat you better over there than they do here. But for us, like we've done a little bit of US touring as well. And either way, for us being, you know, we're all older guys. We have like, you know, mortgages and commitments at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for us to be out on the road very long, so we generally will limit it to maybe 3 weeks max for us, and with the idea that we've got to be able to make enough money to cover what we don't make at home working our job. So
I think it gets harder too, like when you get older, because like I'm 51 years old. Like I know, you know, not being a musician, obviously, but you start to like your creature comforts and stuff too. You know? I mean, like being away from home kind of sucks sometimes, you know.
Yeah. It definitely has gotten harder as I get older. So yeah,
you know, you start to miss your own bed, and you start to miss you know, those things you take for granted that you have at your disposal at home. You know, I mean, then suddenly you look around and you're like, oh, I don't have any of that stuff. You know.
Yeah, and we're not at a level where we have roadies either to holler.
Right.
Speaker cabs in, you know, every night ourselves. So
I hear that story echoed a lot talking to musicians on here, though, man. European audiences, man, really seem to, and they always seem to have, like, they have so much more festivals. I mean, they probably outnumber us at least like 3 to 1 with music festivals. And you know, they really seem to have a better understanding and, like, embrace music, like, better over there. And I guess, you know, me being American, I guess I'm even, you know, speaking out here against my own country, but we just don't do it the way the European audience does.
Yeah, we don't. I'm not sure why that is. I mean, maybe I've thought about it a lot. Like, you know, I think there is like a long history of supporting the arts in Europe that is not so much part of the DNA here. But you know, I honestly I don't really know. But well, maybe I will say this. I think, you know, in certain places, like I think the Netherlands, and I could be wrong, but I think, you know, there is some grants and government support for like venues where will also help with getting like some of these big festivals going, you know, to encourage the support of the arts, which is something that's kind of non-existent here, you know. And it's just, I'm not sure, like, you know, there are some great venues here in the US, but there's also like a lot of venues that just don't treat musicians well at all. And it's hard to get any kind of guarantee. It's hard to get, you know, I mean, there's now the new thing, which drives me insane, is venues taking a cut of bands' merch.
I've been hearing that same sentiment echoed by a lot of guys on here. Yeah.
I mean, I refuse to do that, and that was I've never run into that in Europe. I mean, who knows? Maybe that's going to change, but I haven't ever run into that when we've been over there. I've only seen that here. So
that's insane, because obviously, man, like now, like with the music industry changing so much, you know, all the seismic changes in the industry, you know, that's a big part of a band's revenue nowadays is merch. Yeah,
I mean, you rely on that. I mean, it's the main way you're making money these days.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So you talked about the band's creative process, but for you individually, when you're going to sit down and write lyrics, write riffs or whatever, creative people, talking to them all the time on here, there's a lot of them attack it from different angles. I hear a lot about people getting ideas in the car or at their day job, or, you get people that have to write and go sequester themselves into a confined area and sit there and make themselves write. For you personally, aside from the band, what's the process like for you?
Generally for me, like the lyrics are the last thing for me.
Okay.
But generally like a song start a lot of times it's like, when I'm listening to something else, some other music, whatever that I'm into at the moment, generally it will be something from like maybe that I hear in a song that inspires me, like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do something kind of like that. And so, then it'll kind of help. Then I'll start thinking about or start, playing the guitar and coming up with something that along the lines of whatever it was that sort of like inspired me, and so a lot of times it's just like, and taking also from like different ideas, different inspirations from other things I'm listening to, where I'll just kind of put it through my own filter to make it WoFat. But it's generally, things like that just music that I'm listening to inspires me in some way, shape, or form. And it's not like, directly stealing riffs, but it's just sort of like maybe like how the certain part of the song is put together, or maybe sort of like the overall shape of a riff, or maybe it's just how they went from one section to another, or the feel. It's all kind of different kinds of things about a song that may inspire me to like, oh, that would be cool to do that in one of our songs. And so then it's like, as I piece together maybe riffs, and a larger structure will maybe kind of form in my mind of like, okay, this is how this song will kind of be in the bigger picture. And then I'll start writing lyrics. Lyrics is hard thing for me. I've always been one of those people that I don't really listen to lyrics that much. Like it's kind of the last thing I hear.
Yeah.
I'm listening to music.
Yeah.
But like the lyrics, like for WoFat, like, I like labor over them. It's just like write and rewrite, and I'm like, it's hard. It's like, for me, hard for me to like get to a point where I feel like they're done, and so I don't know. I mean, I to me the lyrics are really important with what we do, even though I'm oddly don't think about lyrics that much for other bands, but it's the last thing I do. And then like once I write the lyrics, I maybe start coming up with a melody with the lyrics, a lot of times the groove will change to be able to, one, for me to be able to play it and sing it at the same time. And also two, like once we start playing things as a band, seeing how it all kind of lays together when we're all playing it, well, a lot of times we'll change.
Yeah.
Either change the lyrics or the melody, or change the riff, or something like that.
And what do you draw from, like when you're going to sit down and put pen to paper with the lyrics, man? Like what typically goes through your mind? Like, are you writing about the everyday experiences, things you've been through? Are you somebody that kind of draws inspiration from like movies, or like, are you a news guy, or I mean, like what's the kind of the well of inspiration that you're drawing off of?
Generally, like with WoFat, it's going, back originally, it was kind of like using, like taking like Lovecraft, or like horror inspired things, and then writing lyrics based on that. A lot of times they'd be sort of allegorical for political ideas or things like that.
Right.
And then, that kind of progressed, like with Black Code, it was sort of more sci-fi based, horror, sci-fi based kind of things, ideas with that, and like, technology, and, the dangers of technology and that kind of stuff. And Singularity is kind of a similar thing about, there's like the songs on there, some of them are, about AI, or about, the potential, apocalyptic endings that we could come to through our own undoing, by decisions that we make. But it's, a lot of it's kind of like sci-fi sort of based symbolism and allegory and things like that.
One thing I'm starting to realize from talking to musicians on here, and I'm wondering like where you stand on this, is we think about songs, we think about the music, but when again, me being 51 years old, I think of a time when you put an album on and you listen to it from start to finish. Like you wouldn't think about putting on like an album like Pink Floyd's The Wall and skimping around, you know, and checking out different tracks. You'd go for the whole journey or whatever. How much thought goes between, you know, to the arrangement and the order of the songs on one of your albums? Because I feel like, you know, and talking to musicians on here, I'm starting to realize that's a pretty intricate piece and often, you know, maybe underappreciated.
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, not so much like a storyline with lyrics, but there is like to me, a flow of the music that I think about, and that we think about, you know, when we're ordering the song, kind of like a set list too. You know, I want I mean, we are thinking about people listening from start to finish, and like, you know, like with Singularity, there's the sound that opens the album. It's like this, I can't remember how I did it. It's like a delay loop kind of thing that I go on. And that is actually, I took it from the end of the Oracle. That was like the delay looping out at the feeding back at the end of that song. And so I stuck that at the front so that it's kind of like it got this circular thing from, you know, the beginning is the end and the end is also the beginning. But so, like, you know, we'll order the song so that there's a flow and you know, rise and fall of energy and you know, things like that.
And when you sit down to name the band, why does the villain from Hawaii Five-0 get the honor of getting to be the name of the band? Like, what, you know, is it kind of tongue in cheek, or is there something about that particular character or that show that speaks to you?
Well, you know, it's funny because, you know, me and Michael and I have been friends, like, we met in college in like 1985, but so I remember we both were like fans of, at some point we talked about being fans of the 70s, you know, Hawaii Five-0 TV show, and then like watching reruns of it a while back. But really the name, there wasn't a whole lot of thought that went into it, aside from the fact that it was just sort of a 70s reference. And originally, you know, the idea was just, you know, very 70s influenced stoner rock band. And, you know, I think we sort of moved beyond just the sort of 70s stoner rock thing, but that's where the name came from. It wasn't anything super special. Although I will say that the character of Wofat, and that he was like a intriguing, you know, sort of mysterious guy from the East, and, you know, and so that it did have that kind of mystery to it.
There was an air of mystery to him. Yeah, definitely. Now, do you like when you hear like you know, do you like having the concept of your music just be simplified to rock and roll, or do you like, because it seems like in the rock and metal world, you know what I mean, everything's got to be fit into a nice neat little box. There's genres and subgenres. Like, you know, I've got some of them written down here. You guys have been like labeled as a psychedelic band, a blues band, a stoner, sludge. I don't even know what the fuck that even means. Sludge, you know, doom. I mean, do you like all those? Do you think that they're like, you know, all pertinent to what you do, or would you like it all boiled down to kind of just like, you know, like one term that fits your music?
I don't know. I mean, I think the labels, it doesn't really bother me either way. I mean, they're useful, I think, to describing bands, you know. But at the same time, like, I don't know that we necessarily fit into, like, I don't think we're not just a traditional doom band,
right?
That we're really a stoner rock band, but we are kind of a lot of things, depending maybe the part of the song,
right? You know, so, right. You're not really one of those things, but you are probably parts of almost all of those things. Yeah.
Which, you know, people can label it whatever they want. It's fine with me. I mean, you know, sometimes it's hard for me to describe it to other people because I use maybe some of those terms, but it's like, you know, we don't sound like, you know, I mean, we don't sound like a lot of, like, we don't sound like St. Vitus or something, you know, from talking about doom, you know, so it's like, you know, we just have elements of a lot of different things, and hopefully that appeals to people that, you know.
Why did you guys, you know, is there a reason? Is it deliberate why you guys always, you know, sort of remained a trio? Was there ever like an idea that, like, you know, certainly not that it needs it, but to thicken up the sound, like, with, you know, and make it a quartet or a quintet? Like, why specifically? What, you know, has it, you know, does a trio just work the best for what you do?
Well, interestingly enough, so I mean, really, the trio format has always been appealing to me because it feels more free in terms of what we can do in terms of like when there's like improvisation going on and things we're maybe getting away from just like the set parts and set riffs. It feels like the more streamlined trio version is easier to do that with. But that being said, like for this last European tour that we did in 2022, we added another guitar player, this guy Matt Watkins, who actually played on the very first four songs that we were recorded that were on Gathering Dark.
Okay.
And he used to jam with us like when we first were starting to play, but he lived in Kansas City, and so it was just kind of just not realistic for him to be able to work with it. And then we just were the 3-piece after that, and like I really always dug that 3-piece thing, and the reason we added Matt for that tour and he kept playing with us after that was that some of the songs on Singularity, there was some guitar things like some harmony parts and stuff that it's like I can't do that by myself, and so I thought, oh, it'd be cool to have another guitar player playing with us live. And so it is cool to like live. It is cool to kind of have that extra power, that second guitar playing riffs. It does feel cool to have. It feels a little heavier at times than just a trio, Yeah. But so it's kind of a trade off. There's pros and cons to both to me.
Now, this is a subjective question, man, but for you, and it doesn't just have to be within the genre that you play, but for you as a listener, as a music fan, who would be your all-time musical acts if you had to put up a Mount Rushmore? Who would it be for you?
Yeah, that's tough. So probably John Coltrane would definitely have to be there.
Okay.
Probably Sleep would have to be there because that, especially Holy Mountain, was like massively influential on what we've done with Low Fat. Probably Jimi Hendrix. I mean, I couldn't not have him up there. But also Tommy Bolin, honestly, his guitar playing has been pretty influential on me.
Okay.
And I'd say more recently, like especially as it's influential on what was happening with the Singularity, is Mahavishnu Orchestra and John McLaughlin.
Oh, okay. Not a bad Mount Rushmore. Not a bad Mount Rushmore at all. Now, why John Coltrane? I mean, obviously, I know you got the jazz background, man, but so many great jazz musicians out there, man. What is it specifically about him? I usually try to pick one of the Mount Rushmore acts and kind of key in on it, man. So, he was the first one you mentioned, man. Like, what is it about him?
So that was John Coltrane. I mean, there's a ton of great jazz musicians that I really love, but there's something about his music and his like emotion and the emotion that he put into his playing that just always grabbed me. And the thing, like one aspect of his music, especially like the later like 60s on, is a lot of focus on pentatonic scales, which is essentially blues scales, the pentatonic scale. But then of course he would like do much more complex things than just a simple pentatonic. But that melodically, a lot of things that he was doing are things that in a much simpler way I would kind of try to do with Woe Fat. I mean, not nearly as complex as what he's done, but just sort of a pentatonic approach to certain things the way he does. But also, like I think of like his Live at Birdland album, which is just an amazing live album, and it's just like it feels just like he's just on the edge the whole time. The whole band, it feels like they're just about to like go off the rails, but they're just hanging on and just going for it. Yeah, and that, to me,
almost like a controlled chaos.
Yeah, and so that kind of feel is something that has always appealed to me, which is one thing about jazz I always like, but that's also something that I wanted to have as a big part of Will Fat's music.
Yeah. Now you had Jimmy up there on the Mount Rushmore. Would you say, and you also mentioned Tommy Bolin, who would you say has been the biggest influence directly on your own guitar playing?
Boy, I don't know, man. Actually, wow.
Might not be either one of those guys. I don't know. But
I mean,
you mentioned both
those guys, but man, that's a really hard question because I mean, there's just so many guitar players. I mean, Matt Pike, of course, has influenced me.
Love him. Oh man, do I love him? I've been trying to run down Jeff Matz or anybody from that band to try to get them on here, man. I love what High on Fire does, man.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing that's so great about those bands. And I had this conversation with somebody on an episode the other day. When I was young and I was a teenager, I used to think like me and my friends would get into, all the gateway stuff. You get into the hair metal, and then you start to fucking get into thrash and punk and hardcore. And then we'd always be trying to try to wow each other with like, look, I found this. Oh, we're going more extreme. We're finding the next heaviest thing, the next heavy. Look how evil and fast. And I used to equate heavy with fast, incomprehensible, blast beats, all that stuff. But then you start to realize when you get older, man, that heavy can be a totally different thing. Like when you listen to like a High on Fire or a Crowbar, just doesn't necessarily got to be fast, but just thick, just this, heavy in a different kind of way. Yeah, I equate you guys in that same category too.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, really, heavy could be just like the sickness of a riff. I mean, there's just like
absolutely
like a riff. Like how did they come up with that? But you know who like is actually now I think about a huge influence on me guitar wise is Johnny Winter. Yeah.
A lot of blues there. Yeah.
In fact, that was when I first started kind of learning more bluesy things. I remember learning some Johnny Winter solos was like some of the first things I learned.
Yeah. Now, is there a musical act out there? I had this conversation with someone the other day. Is there somebody out there that's really gotten a lot of accolades in the music world, but you just find them a little bit overrated? Like you just don't see what all the hype is about. I had a guy. I don't know if the episode is up yet. He may take a beating in the comment section if anybody chooses to comment. But he said that he just never really got the hype behind the Beatles. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes there's just those bands that people put up on a pedestal and they say, oh my God, life just wouldn't be the same if we never had the Beatles. But then there's people who just say, I don't get it.
Yeah, see, I'm kind of the same way about the Beatles. I mean,
I am too.
I look at them as like they're good songwriters, but I'd rather hear somebody else do their songs than them.
Yeah.
But I mean, one band, and this, I know this will like probably freak a bunch of people out, but I've never really been a huge Thin Lizzy fan.
Okay.
All those great 70s bands, I've never quite understood. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying they just never really did it for me. Like,
right. This is a very subjective. It's a very subjective question. You know what I mean? Like they are for a lot of people, but I mean, this is just simply a question specifically speaking to your own tastes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just to me, there's a lot of other bands from the 70s that just grab me a lot more that I choose to listen to more than I would choose to listen to them. So
now the opposite side of that question, is there somebody out there, man, who you think hasn't gotten I mean, there's probably tons of them out there, but that hasn't gotten the accolades that you think, wow, man, they are a brilliant band. Too bad more people haven't fucking locked in on them.
It probably is. I'm trying to think about that. That's a hard question. Well, Tommy Bolin one. I mean, he's got some recognition, but trying to think some other.
But probably not nearly on the level that he should.
Yeah. And there's also like that. There's that 70s Stray Dog album, that first album. That's an amazing record.
Yeah.
That kind of gets forgotten about, which it might probably because the mix is kind of weird on that record. So it's kind of hard to tell what's going on sometimes. But his guitar playing is just killer on there, and the riffs are great. Boy, what else? There's just so many obscure, not obscure, but they're just lesser known bands, 70s or even these days. They're just great bands that a lot of people don't really know about.
Is there any band out there like right now, man, that you would consider like a new band or anything that you've heard about in the last in recent times that has really got you excited at all? I mean, first of all, I should ask, in your recording studio, do other bands come in and use the facility and you record other bands as well, other than just your own?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, this is where commercial recording studio, and I do a pretty wide variety of musical styles here, but I had this band Temptress that were here earlier today, and I've done a lot of bands in the scene. Like I did mixing for Young Balch record, the one from last year, and like a lot of Texas bands that have recorded here. Mothership, we did their first record here, and Doomstress and a bunch of bands I'm forgetting about now, of course. But as far as like bands that I've listened to that I'm really into, like I've kind of in the last couple of years been really going down this sort of space rock, and more instrumental rock thing.
Yeah.
And so I've been really digging, like there's this band Robot God, you know if I really dig a lot. Monkey 3, of course, is one of my favorite all-time bands. Who else? Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I've been at lately. A little less on the heavy side, a little more on the jammy side of things. You know, Domadora is a band I really like a lot from France.
Is there a way that the music industry could have, you know, I don't know, you know, obviously, you know, going back, there used to be the existence of record labels, you know, there used to be like a formula to the industry, you know, but I feel like the industry probably saw streaming coming down the pike. Is there a way that maybe the labels or the industry as a whole could have somehow harnessed it and kind of got their foot in the door and made it so it was more profitable for the musicians to get paid, so they didn't have to go out and slog it out on the road and hope that they can sell a bunch of t-shirts or whatever? Because you know, it seems like it's not like what it once used to be, man. But is there a way that it could have ended up more profitable and a better situation for everybody? How could they have righted it?
I don't know, man. Honestly, it's like it's a tough question or tough call. I mean, there's always been it's always been tough for especially mid to lower level bands to make money. You know, it's like even when there were big labels around, you know, it's there. I mean, I remember in the 90s, bands I'd worked with here, they would get like a major label deal, and then the record would never come out because the A&R got changed to somebody else, and they just got dropped. And then their music, they never got to release it because they didn't own it anymore. You know, so it's like there's, at least with the streaming thing, it has kind of opened the door for more accessibility to get your music out there. But by the same token, it's like making money off of it is kind of almost non-existent. So I wish I had an answer. I really don't know what the answer is to make more money for bands.
It's a slippery slope. It is. Yeah. And so another subjective question: if I'm taking Kent Stump and I'm dropping him on a desert island tomorrow, what's the desert island album that he takes with him? Is there just one?
No, I don't think there's just one.
No.
No.
What if you could take a whole artist, complete discography? Is there an artist that you would want to listen to?
Yeah, probably. Actually, if that were the case, I'd probably take Monkey 3 because that's what I'm into.
Okay. So you would be content on this desert island. You'd be content on this desert island, living, dying, spending your remaining days with Monkey 3.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair enough answer.
You know, but I don't know. I'd probably get sick of it too. So, you know.
Now you just put out an EP, which I thought is great, man. Cyclopean riffs, and the thing that made me laugh, 2 songs, but yet it's still damn near 20 minutes.
Yeah. So that was originally a split that we did with the band Egypt from
Okay.
And it was vinyl only originally and released by Totem Cat Records in France.
Okay.
And so it never had a full digital release aside from like you could get it on our Bandcamp page. And then finally I was like, why do I not have this streaming? So we put it up for streaming. But yeah, so that's why it's like the side of a record basically. And
okay.
So those songs were actually recorded at the same time we recorded Black Code. And so one of those songs, Electric Hellhound, was originally supposed to be on the Black Code album, and Lost Highway was originally written for this EP. And the way things turned out was like, man, Lost Highway is such a great song. It's going on the record. And then we put the song on the EP.
Well, it made me laugh because me being like an upstate New York guy, like I think about the great like hardcore scene down in New York City, and like some of those New York hardcore bands, man. You know, you open up this EP with a song that's like over 12 minutes long. Fuck, some of those whole albums would be 12 minutes long with those New York hardcore bands.
yeah, like 20 songs.
Yeah, you get like 20 songs and the whole thing would be like 13 minutes.
Yeah.
and so I would be remiss if I didn't ask, for fans of Woe Fat, the last album, The Singularity, came out in 2022. Is there new music in the works?
It's sad to say at the moment there's not, and
okay.
It's just we've kind of hit this sort of stage of inactivity, partly because like Michael's job situation changed, and and then my situation here at the studio's changed a bit too, as far as taking up a lot of my time, just running the business, and it's just sort of, we just haven't really had time to get together a lot, and so we're sort of on a little bit of a hiatus, and I'm hoping, soon that maybe some things will kind of steady out life, just in life, and allow me to sort of get back into a more creative mind place, in my mind, and start writing again. But I'm not sure when that'll happen. Hopefully soon. But
yeah. Do you feel like you do some writing at least though on an everyday basis, or are there days like when you don't, when you focus on like the studio duties and don't actually do any creating of your own?
Lately, it's been mostly that. I'm not really
doing
creating. I'm just like dealing with like work life stuff,
Hey,
but I do have like I've got ideas rolling around in my mind about certain grooves and certain things I want to do. So it's just a matter of finding time and sitting down and starting to put that stuff to, bringing it to fruition and making it real.
So realistically, for fans of WoFat, probably don't expect a WoFat album in 2025.
Probably not.
Okay. We got to be honest with the folks, We'll make them wait a little bit. I mean, for God's sakes, man, some of the biggest bands in the world nowadays, man, fucking make us wait, how long between albums,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and then there's bands that are just like rolling them out. I started to see around COVID that started to become like a trend. I think because people couldn't get out and play live, we were just seeing a lot of singles and a lot of EPs. People were just like putting shit out and putting shit out and putting shit out,
Yeah.
What was that time like for you during COVID? Did that throw a wrench into anything that you had going on at the time? Did you find it a time when you were particularly creatively prolific? Like, how did you use that time when we were kind of all hunkered down?
It was actually, it was good for me. I mean, that some of the, how many songs? Like there was maybe half the stuff on Singularity was maybe a third to around half the songs were probably written during that time.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't remember how many were, but there was definitely a few like songs like Snows of Banquo was definitely written during the pandemic, and some other things were kind of maybe more solidified during that time while, when I was at home and listening to music, and also had time to just sit down and play guitar. And
what the hell else could you do? What could you do? Weird time.
Very weird. Yeah.
I think we're gonna look back at that in like, in like world history and think that's always gonna be strange, because I work in the healthcare field. I'm a nurse. That's my day job, and I had to get vaccinated in order to have job security and keep my job. But I'm not so sure that this was really anything much different than just getting the fucking flu. I mean, it just kind of felt like awfully weird that we just got into this huge panic. And I know lots of lives were lost, but I mean, there's still a lot of people losing their lives like from the flu and from pneumonia every year, I mean, we flew into a huge panic, man. But here we are a couple of years like removed from it though. And it seems like, it almost seems like it's just all but forgotten about,
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It was this little blip on the radar where we panicked for a couple of years, and then, now everything's back to normal again. I mean,
yeah, it's weird.
And how did you fare during it? Did you actually get COVID at all?
No, not until it was like when I was fine for like all the way until 2022. It was like 3 weeks before we were going to Europe. I got it for the first time.
And you tested and found out you positively had it?
Yeah. I had been vaccinated already. And then I took I got the Paxlovid. I took that.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of the running joke was now, like when you sniffle or cough or whatever, like around that time, people were like, "Uh-oh, you've got the corona." You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't have anything else. You couldn't have the common cold or the flu anymore. You know what I mean? Like everyone's mind went right to that.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I'm glad we got a chance to finally nail down some time to do this, man. And I just want to say, man, that I'm a fan. I really enjoy like what you do. I tell people all the time when I have them on as guests here that I don't just pick their name out of a hat. You know what I mean? They've been on my radar, man. There's somebody who put something out or their artistic endeavors or something that I enjoy. And I enjoy what you guys do.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. I appreciate the time. I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this. We're connected on social media now. So, stay in touch. I'd love to have you back on again.
Right on, man. Cheers.
Yeah. Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for taking the time, man. It means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the support.
Good talking to you, Kent. Thank you.
All right.
Later, man. There he goes, folks. Kent Stump. If you don't know the band, Whoa Fat, which is a killer name, man, by the way, man. For all you people that were around in the 70s enjoying Hawaii Five-0, he was one of the bad guys on there, man. Whoa Fat is a great sludge, doom, stoner metal band. Another one of those bands that's heavy, but not the kind of heavy that you might think about. The kind of heavy that the naive young me used to think was heavy, was fast, brutal, as I said, man. But these guys are that thick, doom, something like a fucking anvil just fell on you type of fucking heavy, man, which, I'm starting to realize really is the essence of heavy, man. Thick, sludgy riffs, psychedelic, certainly a lot of blues infused in there. How they attack their music is a very interesting take. Their last album was 2022's The Singularity. And then in 2023, they put out just a 2-song EP, Cyclopean Riffs. They're not afraid of a long song. They're not afraid of a long album. So there's plenty of shit to dive into and immerse yourself with. You're not going to get shortchanged on a Whoa Fat album, that's for sure. You're going to get your share of some fucking music. Typical albums run well over an hour. It's like the old heyday of a good old-fashioned Metallica album or a good old-fashioned album from the 70s. You know what I mean? Long song structures, long albums, long running times, and just a really interesting take on music. And like what they do is they're certainly in their own lane. So do check out Whoa Fat. Thank you so much to Kent Stump for doing this. Glad I finally got a chance to run him down. Interesting chat with him, man. Really enjoyed that. Hope you guys did too. Make sure to like and follow us on Facebook. As I always say, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on this channel for all the best conversations anywhere. That's right. I'm going on record as saying it. Anywhere in the civilized or even uncivilized world. This is where the cool kids come to chop it up and hang with your boy, Rexx Ruger. No place else, man. And like I always say when I end these things, remember, kids, take it easy and keep it sleazy.